And so I think a shift from, a how you should do something to a how we've done something similar for others is a really important shift in how marketing should be done. So that bottom funnel conversion focus kind of social proof to show that you've done it for similar customers, with concrete examples is really, really powerful because there's a confidence behind that. We're not the guinea pigs. You've done this before. Now you can do it for us. Versus this is an idea you have. How do we even know it's right?
Hello everyone, today my guest is Adam Kimmel and he created his own consulting company. He is helping mid-sized manufacturing company with content, sales, and also marketing strategy. So let's dive in and understand what Adam did for those past 11 years managing his own company. Hello Adam, good morning.
Hello, Maxime. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being with us. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit with your background so people understand where you come from,
Sure. So my story starts, I'm an engineer by experience and by training. So I've got degrees in chemical and mechanical engineering, and I've been working either inside or with manufacturing and engineering companies for most of my career, designing products, doing product development. I've got about a dozen global patents to my name. So I was in a cube calculating for much of my life. And I kept noticing a problem that there were these technical solutions that would become developed and no one understood what they did or how they could help their customers. And so seeing this need, I pivoted to kind of do business development the best way to frame it. I started doing content where I would explain these technical solutions to business leaders within companies I worked for, and then to the broader market. And then eventually found out that, well, nobody really understood what their business fundamentals were or what their right to win was or any of that. And so that's how I started doing marketing strategy and business development. And so now I help companies, mid-sized manufacturing and engineering companies with, awareness with their product portfolio, product marketing, and how to get new business from new customers.
Okay, so you started within your company, you were an employee, you took, let's say, an entrepreneurial role within the company, and then you said, you know what, let's do it by myself. What pushed you to do and start your own venture?
It was really the feedback that I got. I found out that people really didn't do this kind of thing well, and I would have customer meetings and I would have to create PowerPoint decks and things and collateral and materials to explain this. And I found that to be a strength. And so every time I would do it, I would get really positive feedback. And so I thought, well, if I can do it for one company well, I wonder if I could do it for multiple companies and then kind of remove the constraints that you have when working for only one company. And so now I do this, for other companies and have developed my own systems based on all that experience. I mean, I was an engineer for about 20 years and so all those experiences are baked into this process that I started to use. That's had a lot of, proof points and a lot of validation with the customers I've worked with.
Okay, so and you just mentioned, so it's been more than a decade that you are working with those companies, and obviously your processes have evolved during those years. And what's the market trend or what's the trend around your offer that you have seen evolve to lead to today, 2025, moving into 2026? What small manufacturer should focus on right now?
Yeah, I think the problem that I've noticed in the way this was done historically is that you have the engineering and technical product teams doing their work based on experiences and expertise that they have. You have sales with a quota to hit, a more transactional approach, and then you have marketing that has been used as a support function to both of those. I think the winning companies, the shift that I've seen them make is to put marketing over top of both of those. Marketing is the conduit or like the hub in the middle of the wheel to connect product to sales, such that the sales team members that are talking to the marketplace are using marketing to communicate products, inventions, and benefits and solutions. So marketing becomes how to talk to the industry about the point of view. So it's less to lead with, here's the product we developed, look how complicated it is, and more, here's the problem it solves, here's why it's important to have that problem solved, and our point of view as to why we developed this thing to help solve it.
So basically, you help companies like redesign or rethink their message to the customer, to the consumer, to the end goal, right? The end goal customer, and find new accounts, open new accounts. How do you work like step by step? What's your process when you go into those businesses and you work with them?
Yeah, interestingly, my experience in manufacturing, I did a lot of projects using lean manufacturing principles. So this notion of plan, do, check, act. This is a very common lean manufacturing process.
The will, yeah.
The wheel, right? I've My process is called engineered growth because I apply that plan, do, check, act methodology to growth. And that's not a step that many people take, but basically you have to do an audit to understand the landscape of where you are. What's worked today? Where is your business coming from? How have you gotten that business? And, how resilient is that in terms of, yes, the market is changing almost daily, it feels like, with different competitive opportunities and competitors and different tools and products coming into play. So what does that landscape look like, and do we feel confident about our ability to continue getting business how we've gotten it? And then we go through and do an audit. Or, I mean, after the audit, we do an activation or kind of a do loop in the plan, do, check, act. And so that's where we start to develop our engineered growth blueprint, which is what I call the plan. We do the audit, we find out the gaps, a technology evaluation against competition, so like a SWOT type analysis,
Okay.
a product analysis. We look at features and benefits and do like a side by side, very honest assessment and say, are we really confident in our product portfolio, or does it need to change? What does our product marketing materials and strategy look like? So that I help them go through those materials and look at how they're talking about the product, and bringing sales into that. Does sales understand how they should be talking about the product from a features and benefits standpoint to get a layer deeper than the surface level problem it solves? So then once that plan is together, we take that back to the marketplace. And I think that's a really important shift, because a lot of companies I've worked with in the past seem to say, all right, well, we've identified a problem, let's solve it, and then launch something. I think there's an important loop in there that you have to test it in the marketplace. And that's really where I see content is so invaluable. Develop new messaging around this point of view, take that to the market and get feedback, and use that feedback to refine and optimize the messaging. And that messaging goes into all the trade show collateral, all the product information, and all the thought leadership, which should be, either ebooks, digital, like blog posts, long form, and LinkedIn and social posts or YouTube videos. So all these different mediums to test this messaging. Once the feedback is there, then you can scale. And that's where I help them develop business development processes to go out to engage the market to get new business from new customers using this refined, optimized, market validated messaging.
Okay. Well, that's a good transition because you mentioned all those media, and I've been talking to some of those companies here in the Midwest, and some of them they do go to trade show, and
Hmm.
then they don't see any results. They're like, "Ah, damn." And is there a gap because this is the old way of doing marketing versus the new way and the importance of going online? What's your opinion about this one?
Yeah, I think a few years ago, trade shows were really under scrutiny, as there's a ton of investment. These trade shows can be, if you have a booth and you're displaying and to send everybody there, and it can be six figures. For a small manufacturer, that's a lot to swallow in terms of an expense. So there seemed to be this, well, we don't need to do trade shows. With COVID, we can do everything digitally. I think the ability to get in front of your prospects and customers in person has a huge value. The difference I see is it shouldn't be a trade show only or a digital only. It's got to be a hybrid of both of those things. So the trade shows just become a snapshot in time, right, of exposure. Here's our messaging today. Here's, what we're talking about today. Whereas digital marketing is kind of an evergreen opportunity to get in front of your audience whenever they're looking for what you're talking about. So from a digital perspective, the messaging's got to be out there, because people that you would talk to at a trade show do that research up front. They're going through, either solution evaluations or trying to figure out how to solve this problem that they have without your knowledge of whether or not they're in market. So that by the time the trade show comes along, they may actually seek you out. So it's important to have a shingle at a trade show or a booth to have them be able to come and meet with you. You don't really always know who is in market to talk to you. So I think having a digital presence addresses that 98% of people that aren't in market, but that could be in the future. And then the trade show is really where you, if it's a fishing analogy, that's where the fish might bite on the fishing line. They've read your digital marketing, they understand your point of view and your solution, and now they're ready to engage.
So your perspective is more the online content is to warm up the audience, and the trade show is to get the deal done.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's also some conversations that happen at the booths, but a lot of that just become people that are interested in the marketing that they see. People that that's like people walking by the booth, they might be interested and come talk to you. The people that seek you out are the people that are already with you. They've already heard podcasts you've done or read articles that you've written and came to the trade show because they know you're going to be there. There's probably other reasons they're there too, but that's the most effective way to use trade shows is exactly what I've just described, because you get that 2% of people that are in market. That's how you can attract them for an in-person meeting and really have a deeper discussion. Oftentimes at trade shows with a decision-making team that moves things along faster than a digital only or especially a trade show only approach could do.
That's right. So if you had to summarize or explain what are the new ways of doing marketing now in 2026 versus this trade show online content, what's the difference right now? What have you seen evolve?
I think a customer focus. I think for many years, as I kind of was mentioning, after COVID, people started to want to just do digital only and try to sort of hack their way to success in terms of digital, inbound marketing only. And I think having these live customer conversations about their problems has been the shift. And so the people that understand their customers' problems the best and can articulate those back to them in the words they use in their marketing are winning. So this almost like an obsessiveness over customer language and customer problem articulation and the way that the customers frame their problems builds credibility in terms of if they hear what they're thinking in your marketing, the trust factor's off the charts. That gives you every right then to propose a solution that solves that specific problem because they know that you're in the marketplace, you understand the problems, you're talking to people that are having them because you speak their language. So there's kind of this translation in terms of I'm hearing a problem and I can translate it back to how we're going to solve it and why it matters to solve.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a quote from Simon Sinek, who mentioned that there is a million of indicators to evaluate your performance, but none to evaluate trust. And you mentioned trust, which is probably the most important. But how do you create trust? How do you? That's kind
Well,
of the $1 million question.
is trust is an easy thing to lose and a really difficult thing to gain. So all the work to do, if you in your client delivery and in interactions, you can destroy all the trust that you've worked so hard to build if it's not done right. So I mean, for me, I think it's just becoming really take an ownership mindset of your customers' problems. So, I get to look at it from both sides of the fence because when I was internal, I operated like a consultant. I mean, I worked for a company, but I kind of took the mindset of there are all these things that don't make sense to me and I think we should change. So I'm going to advise the company that they should change that with rationale as to why. And that's what I do now as a consultant. So on the flip side of that, so as a consultant, I build trust by kind of adopting their problems as my problems during our engagements. And I take an internal mindset as an external partner and to make sure that I solve the problem in the way that I know it should be solved, not just the minimum required per whatever contract or agreement we have. So I think really taking that ownership is important. And then I would advise, kind of the manufacturers that have prospects and customers to do similar things. I mean, really, if you really understand the problems your prospects have and why they have them and why they're important to solve them the best way possible. I mean, maybe it's a way that they're not thinking about. So if you answer their question directly and stop talking, that's one approach. If you take it and say, yeah, but I've done some additional research and through other market information I know from working with other clients like you, here are some suggestions I have. What do you think about these? And how can we, you know, is this interesting to you? And does it make sense to continue talking about these types of approaches? They appreciate so much that external viewpoint because a lot of times, manufacturers get insulated to their own companies and businesses and day-to-day problems. They don't have that visibility to what the market's doing or how shifts or trends might happen. So, I think you can best build trust by providing that external viewpoint in a very objective way. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I think it means. What do you think it means? So in a very problem focused, helpful, collaborative kind of a partnership, not a transaction. I think that maybe that's the best way to summarize it. Act like a customer's partner in all of your way of working versus a transactional, oh, here's this thing you asked me to do. What do you think?
Okay, got it. Now, thank you for that deep analysis. I appreciate that.
Sure.
But because I've realized it's kind of the same thing. I have also a consulting business now, and it's kind of easier when you are external because you see things in a different way. And I'm not saying you don't know what you're talking about because we have our background, we have our experiences, and we are trying to help. Well, actually, both of us, we are trying to help the same kind of people, the manufacturing company in the Midwest. So, and we have been working with them for so many years, but always having this external point of view help a ton for personally for me. And even those company, they don't realize because they are focused on their day-to-day operations. They have been doing things for the same way for so many years. And this external point of view is so valuable. So no, it's very deep what you said. I don't know how to summarize that, but yeah, to understand your customer pain is probably number one to gain trust.
I think to be able to frame their pain points and put it into your marketing in their words, I think that's really important because it shows that you're listening, that you actually, that it's important to you. And then the other thing I would say for trust is if the messaging lands, kind of what's the next step in that evolution of a prospect to client, relationship or journey. I really like proof because some decision maker is going to want to know you can't guarantee a return on the investment, but they want as close to that as they can get. And so I think a shift from, a how you should do something to a how we've done something similar for others is a really important shift in how marketing should be done. So that bottom funnel conversion focus kind of social proof to show that you've done it for similar customers, with concrete examples is really, really powerful because there's a confidence behind that. We're not the guinea pigs. You've done this before. Now you can do it for us versus this is an idea you have. How do we even know it's right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's an important shift in the messaging that I've seen work really well. Even in my own LinkedIn posting, once I started to say how I have, and here was the result, the response was off the charts. It was a night and day. So it's really important.
Yeah, the power of the case study, that brings another question to my mind because some companies, or many of them, they have case studies on their website, but it doesn't talk to me. When I look at them, it's like, okay, it's a technical solution, but what's the outcome? What have you given? So the importance of the case study is probably now like the must have. Do you work the case study around with your clients?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a program right now with a client where we're developing. It's a content only case study generation, kind of a campaign where they've done this great work, and now they want to get kind of marketing credit for it and develop these case studies and put it on their website. And what I'm finding is, every interaction is different, but the way that I would do a case study campaign like that, if there's all this proof that companies want to document, I would have a theme for each case study. So as an example, one case study might be, if it's a backup power integration solution, there's a resilience and an uptime to that. So if it's power for a supermarket or a commercial building, power can't go down. Like that's impossible. So how can this solution deliver, operations leaders constant uptime? Another one might be there's a solution that may be a little bit higher first cost, but over time a lower total cost. So this idea of total cost of ownership might be lower. So that's kind of a procurement focused one. So based on how they solved the problem, what the problem was initially and how they, what the outcomes were, there can be this theme overarching in the case studies. And then you can start to bucket case studies on your site for different stakeholders. Because typically buying decisions aren't done by one person. Usually the procurement person is the one that signs the invoice, but there's a technical team that has to approve the solution. And so the case studies and all the marketing needs to speak to those different personas, in a way that makes them confident that, your solution delivers that stakeholder's, requirements.
And it brings me to the next chapter in this podcast. I would be probably focused on AI because AI is
Mm,
everywhere. And
yeah.
depending the country you're in, it's scary or it's an opportunity. I just came back from France, and over there, like nobody wants to touch AI. It's like AI is gonna kill every one of us. So, but in the US, we are more an entrepreneurial country with a business mindset. Right now, for those manufacturers, because they are also adopting it little by little, step by step, some of them, but which tool should they use in 2026 that you have seen some example and it's working for them and it will help them grow? Because AI is here to help them, not to penalize or to replace job for those mid-sized company. Is to help efficiency.
Well, for sure. And I think that last word you said, efficiency, is the most important way to do that for small and mid-sized manufacturers. I mean, they are constantly trying to do more with less. How do we boost throughput? How do we optimize line efficiencies or packaging or, whatever the different criteria are? I think one of the big hidden ones is predictive maintenance on equipment. If a piece of capital equipment, which is very expensive, goes down, that's catastrophic to throughput and profitability. So that yes, the operating efficiency metrics are important, but also understanding how and when that equipment might go down so you can plan for that maintenance is critical. And AI does a great job for predictive maintenance. So that's one thing I would highly recommend people start to use, make classic manufacturers on the shop floor. In other ways, I think these small manufacturers, if they're looking for growth, marketing is another way that I've used it a lot for my own business and to help my clients in terms of, marketing is always being asked to do more with less as well. And so how could that AI be used as a thought partner? So there are tools, ChatGPT is the one everyone knows. But what I've found with AI tools is that they do a great job of taking large data sets and interpolating them down. They do a less great job at extrapolating out from a smaller data set. So what that looks like then is, yeah, the predictive maintenance from an operations standpoint is a great example of having massive data and being able to predict from that. And in marketing, that looks like, feed it a lot of the existing marketing information and then tell it a problem. We're looking to grow into a new segment. Here are some of our marketing collateral and stories that we've told it. How could we use, what should our messaging be given this market trend? And then you can upload a market study or a presentation or, even a podcast transcript that you've heard at a trade show or somewhere else to kind of give it that large data set. And then it becomes a thought partner that you can talk about to say, should we be talking about our products differently in our marketing efforts? Do we need other products and other things? I mean, a consultant like me could help with this with deep industry expertise, but AI is a nice first step to just start generating some ideas before, just to kind of give a starting point so that when you get help with that growth, that's a good way to, hey, here are some thoughts we had, as kind of a conversation starter. So tools like, yes, ChatGPT, but then Perplexity, I found that to be really good for research. Perplexity does a great job at citing sources. I think a lot of the concern over AI is, well, did it hallucinate? Did it just make that up? Well, Perplexity gives the website and gives the source that it found to do that. And then the other one is Claude. Claude is good for writing. Now, I don't really love it for writing drafts. Where I use it is, yeah, I don't really love how this paragraph sounds. Can you give me two other ways to reframe this? So I'll do a first draft and then I'll use AI to kind of help me make it sound better. Or I'll say, can you change the tone for this audience a little bit differently or something like that? It's also good for pulling out FAQs at the end. So the AI tools can scrub Google and other tools to figure out what the market's asking and how to answer those. And then also just give some suggestions for follow-up articles or other campaign elements. So it's a good thought partner for things like that. And there's a lot of use cases that can save people time. So if the marketing department is extremely small, it's a way to help augment the workloads.
I love the way you said that because it's absolutely true. There is a big difference between AI and human. We cannot, as human, analyze a ton of data and extract the tiny pieces. This is exactly what AI is good at. As you said, you feed him tons of hours of documents, and probably for a company it would be to load inside one custom ChatGPT all their document. They just ask one question and poof, they got the answer. So this is what AI is good at, to save this ton of analysis and research time, as you mentioned. But you always need this human touch after that to use and what comes out of AI.
Well, right. And the most effective way to do that is to give it good intake material. So like any, manufacturing process, to use that analogy, garbage in equals garbage out. So the better intake information that you feed AI, the better job it's going to do for you. So I think a lot of people do what I call lazy prompting and just open up the tool and ask it a question. Feed it no source information, give it no context. And that's where it just makes up. Like if you ask it a question, write me a 1,200 word blog article on, machine operation efficiency and no other context. Well, what machine is it supposed to use? So you've asked it for 1,200 words. It's going to give you 1,200 words, but it has to go and figure out where to get these words from. And so if you don't tell it, it's going to make it up. I don't know. It seems crazy to me, but I try to, that's where the human can really be a value, and where I think it makes sense for people to, if they're looking to upskill, to add AI to their own tool set, learn effective prompting techniques, learn how to talk to it and how to give it intake information to deliver the right output with as few iterations as possible. I think that's a really useful skill, and one that intake information, the more you talk to the market and engage your customer base, the better job that you're going to do. You're going to have all that knowledge embedded in your head when you put that in the tool. Again, it comes back to these live conversations with prospects and customers to get that market intelligence and in market insight, because that's really the magic, right? That's what we're after, using that market insight to provide solutions to the industry. And AI can help you do that quicker.
Yep. And the other day I was watching, what was it? The CEO of NVIDIA explaining how important prompting, learning how to prompt AI
Yeah.
will become. And it's exactly what you said. If you don't give context, and a simple example for people watching it, it would change completely the outcome if you start your prompt by, what is the role of the AI? Today, you are my expert marketing guy with 15 years experience in manufacturing, in this area, in this domain, in this particular product. This is one. Two, you have to give him rules of what you are expecting from him. But
Mm-hmm.
it seems like nothing. But as you said, it's the difference between the lazy prompting and the efficient prompting. So you get the answer you are expecting. So rules,
Mm-hmm.
examples can be a strong one. Like, okay, your answer should be like this. And here is an example of 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And it would change drastically the outcome of what you are getting from AI. AI is a great tool, but you need to learn how to use it.
Yeah, and you could even give it guardrails too. Like a lot of the ways I see AI fail are in terms of redundancy. So like for me, if I'm writing a long form blog post and I'm trying to hit a word count, if I don't give it enough source information, it'll repeat things over and over again. And so you can just tell it off the top, don't repeat, don't use industry jargon, talk at a 10th grade reading level. You can give it those guardrails and constraints to minimize iterations. And, if you don't do that, you can still reach the final result. But if our goal is speed, the better job you do up front, the faster it can be to get to the end state that you're looking for. So I think that I call that negative prompting, but the guardrails kind of like, don't do this. It can also help it after you give it what you want it to do.
Yep. So to summarize, if we have to give an advice to those mid-sized manufacturers in the Midwest, which tool should they start to learn and implement for their business?
Any tool that can help with coding or with predictive maintenance. And I'll admit, I don't know the specific tools that can do that. I don't know if, like the tools that I use for marketing would be able to do coding and things like this. But, I would start with the Perplexity because of the source, the ability to do research. So Perplexity is fantastic for research, and it gives sources. So if there's one tool to learn, it would probably be that one. And I would then look at, based on the industry, what tools could be there to help with software development, with coding, and with predictive maintenance to help add that to the shops.
Okay, sounds good. So thanks, Adam. I appreciate a lot. We are arriving at the end of our podcast today. If people want to connect with you, to find you, to work with you,
Yeah.
where should they look?
So my website's the best place to start. So ASK Consulting Solutions is is my agency name. It's ASK as my initials, so it's easy to come up with that. And I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. It's just on LinkedIn, Adam-S-Kimmel is my handle. So both those places. I mean, I love discovery calls. I love talking about this, and yeah, just I'm focused on helping small and medium sized manufacturers with growth. So looking forward to some great conversations.
Awesome. So I hope we'll see you around and maybe we'll work together someday.
I would
Thank you,
look forward
Adam.
to that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.